Welcome back, folks. So in this video we need to now start to filter out our interior. So currently our interior just sort of turns on and off, but what if we wanted to have that so we can get the variations that we need? Well, first we need a control to do that in our blueprint, so let's go and set that up now. So we've got our PCG blueprint available here. We're going to add a variable to this in order to be able to do this. So what we'll do is we'll set up a interior var, and what we'll do is we'll create a process for doing this, an asset for doing this. And the way that we're going to do this is actually going to create an enum to do this. So what an enum is a sort of an array of assets that we can use, but it's essentially a way of selecting between integer values in a drop-down menu. So if I were to go and look in my assets here, I should have one ready to go. So I've got one here for tags. So it's just a tag enum, and as you can see, it's got variations 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. And these would be controlled by sort of, and then feed back integer variations of 0, 1, and 2. So this is what we're going to use this. We're going to use this tag enum as part of our blueprint. So I'm going to go interior variable, I'm going to change this, and I'm going to just search for tag enum. There it is at the bottom, and you can see that it brings this up. I'm going to put this in the interior category, and we're going to use that as part of this. And we compile it, you can see that we get the drop down for 0, 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to use this as part of our control inside our PCG. So we'll come back over to PCG. So how do we use it, and where do we pick this up? We'll use it inside of output B here, and we'll use it as part of a switch. So we can use a switch to do this. This controls our data flow. And what we can do is we can set up various index elements to come out of the elements here. And what we're going to do is another, or we can even duplicate this get actor property from here, and change this to interior var. And essentially what this will do is it will allow us to read this data. We should be able to actually see that here if we press A to analyze this. You can see that currently this is on 0, but if we start to change this, you can see it's on variation 1 now, and variation 2. So depending on what we set this to, we can have this set up. And what we're going to do is going to read the values from here. We're going to add some elements in our array. Apparently that deleted it, so let's try that one more time. There we go, 3 in here, and we'll set that to 0, 1, and 2. All right, so we plug in our integer selection. What we need to, there we go, integer selection on our road in, and B comes into E. So basically, if interior is true, we can now come back in out here and play with the data. So interior, the tick box down here, interior will turn everything off, and then we can change our variation. So what we'll do is we'll just use another filter to control it. So we can perhaps duplicate our filter aspect here, changing our control. So what we'll do here is we'll do target attribute, and we'll target those attributes that are interior, variation, and 0, 1. So that's the tag we're looking for in each case. So if anything, if this is set to 0, go and filter for these. We can do that for 2 and for 3. So I'm just going to duplicate these, sort of have them here ready to go. And we'll just change these to read variation 2, and this one is going to be variation 3. There we go, plug those in. So now you can see that our variation 0 is active because of this at the minute, but if we come back and change this, then this becomes active. So we can see that this functionality is working, which is great. And all we're going to really want to do now is to plug in our inside filters into here. Okay, that's great. All right, so now what we can see is when this is coming out, essentially what's going to happen is the filter is going to run through this now out the other side. So you can see that we're set to variation 1. We've got our elements here, variation 2 and variation 3. There we go, which is cool. Those are being spawned, which is all good. And we can turn off those completely. And it doesn't really matter whatever we select here because the data never gets that far. Turn these on. Okay, great. Let's continue on for a little bit before we start adding some additional functionality a little bit down the line. One thing I do want to create is perhaps starting to look at perhaps some of our functionality for the exterior and stuff like that. I think that's worth just having a look at. So let's continue on to do this. Now, what I'll probably do is at this point we're going to just repeat this initial sort of process here with these branches. I'll create one for the exterior so you can kind of see how that works, and then what I'm going to do is pause the video and I'm going to plug in a little bit of the rest of the functionality from here. So essentially I'm just going to duplicate my branch and my elements here, pause this out, and again you can see that this is just going to sort of come in here. In fact, these will always be filters as well, by the way. So if I go and get my filter for interior, then this is going to be the filter for, as you guessed it, exterior as well. Now I'm just using the static mesh spawner as essentially a placeholder, so we can see what we're getting in each case. So as you can see here, that the actual static mesh spawner is almost like it's kind of like a debug, I guess. We could throw the debug in here to sort of see what's being picked up. There's the debug boxes for the trees and all those other things, but it's perhaps not entirely helpful because we can't always, some of these are on top of each other and so on. So if we throw these through here, let's turn our debug off. There you go. You can see everything that's been filtered from our debug. And anything that's outside the filter, we have that set up. Again, we want this to be controlled by a variable. So we're going to create our variables. Now, let's see what I'll do. We'll create our first variable for the exterior, then I'll create some of the rest as well. So let's create this one. So we've got exterior, and again, this is going to essentially just be sort of all of the exterior elements. This again is just coming back to being a Boolean, and I'll set that as a category exterior. I'll have that visible. And we'll come back into here. The property is going to be exterior. There we go. Property. What did I not compile? There we go. Done. And so you can see now I've got an exterior value, and if I turn that on and off, it appears and disappears. Okay, great. So that's what we're looking at so far. So what I'm going to do is going to create some of the other ones just on that same setup that you can sort of follow along, and then we'll build out from there. Okay, so I've added a few extra variables in my blueprint here. So you can see I've got from the exterior, I've got rock, statue, and dome, and you can see I've basically just done the same thing to get the statue property, rocks, and dome, and this just essentially turns these sort of on or off depending on sort of what we're looking at. Although that doesn't seem to be. Let's just check. If I've got two, I might have two on top of each other. Let's get rid of that one. There's my VT. There we go. Dome, statue, rocks, exterior. Cool. I've also got a couple of extra ones in here for decal, and that's going to hide all of the geometry that was the decal here. So I've got rid of that. And I've got one for the lights as well. So that would be those elements that are there. So we're hiding those. But we want to use that information to get access to those things out of the decals and out of the lights as well. So what we're going to do is we don't want the geometry for decals, incidentally. But, so with the lights, what we're going to actually do is we're going to do a spawn actor. And with the spawn actor element here, we're going to do merge PCG only. And what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to spawn a template actor. And we're going to look at spawning a point light in here. So we're going to spawn point lights. As you can see now, we've got point lights appearing inside here, which is cool. And if we make those templates actors actable, then we can actually play with those point light components when they're actually spawned, which is cool. One of the things that we want to do with this as well is once those elements have been spawned, we want to be able to try and determine sort of what's going on with those. So they can be spawned inside here, but we can't actually get at them to control them at the moment. Although these are sort of instant static meshes, we want to be able to control them. So perhaps our level designer could come in and actually change the color of those lights. So the way that we do that is rather than in folder, we can actually just get attached in here. And so you can see it actually allow us to go and grab those point lights, and we can then change the color of those point lights whenever we want once it's been built, which is cool. So that's one thing. The other thing I want to sort of quickly perhaps talk through is perhaps a control for how we can control some manipulation for spawning elements or controlling the size of things. So for the statue, for example, what we might want to do for the statue is back in here, we could do something like we could add a variable for something like statue scale, and make that a float value in here. Sort of set the defaults to 1. We could set some slider ranges if we particularly wanted to, but that's fine. But then what we could do is we could come back to our statue here, and in the output of our statue, we could run this through a transform points. There we are, transform points up here. Run this through a transform points. And let's just move this across so we've got a bit more room to work. Run this through transform points and go and get actor property. And what we want statue scale. There we go. There we go. Make that visible. There we are. And then this is going to plug into where are you? Scale min, scale max. It is going to mean that we don't get a variation of that, but that's fine. We could do something different for that if we really wanted to. But then what we do is we can just plug that through here. And now we've got if we come back to our blueprint here, we've got a statue scale, and you can see that we can control the scale of our statue to be tiny or really, really big. Again, like, you know, you could define some limitations for the statue scale here. So if it starts to clip, then that's probably not great. Or you could add up an additional set of movement. So if you scaled the statue up, maybe it moves position, starts to come forward, and you could even do some maths to figure that out if you wanted to. You know, for every scale up, it sort of steps forward, so it's not clipping this beam here. But those are a simple thing to set up. Now, again, I'm going to, in the next video, perhaps look at some additional controls in the same kind of vein, really, for seeds. So I'll see you in that next video.